Listen closely. This world breaks untrained minds. People drain you. Pain follows you. The past tries to chain you. A strategic mind learns the first law of emotional power: detach or be destroyed. Detachment is not coldness, it is control. It is the ability to watch chaos without letting it disturb your inner balance. It is the discipline to walk away from noise, weakness, and emotional traps without apology. So, subscribe now and don't miss a single tip that makes you powerful and unstoppable. Most people lose power because they care too fast, react too quickly, and attach too deeply. You cannot afford that. Not if you want to become unbreakable, not if you want to move like a quiet weapon. You must harden your mind, sharpen your focus, and treat emotions as tools, never as masters. This is how powerful men rise. This is how kings are forged. Machiavelli once said, "A man who does not control his passions is ruled by them." As you listen, repeat this silently. I own my emotions. They do not own me. Comment it below to lock it into your mind. This is Machiavellian mode. Today, you learn how to detach from people, pain, and the past to build a mind that does not break. Number 1. The art of strategic detachment. Detachment starts with a brutal truth. Most people cling to others because they fear standing alone. But every powerful mind is built in solitude. When you detach, you stop giving strangers access to your emotions. You stop letting temporary feelings shape permanent decisions. You stop allowing the past to dictate how you move today. You become deliberate. You become precise. You stop chasing validation and start studying behavior like a strategist, not a victim. Detachment is not isolation. It is refusing to drown in emotions that are not yours to carry. It is watching actions without taking words personally. It is understanding that your peace is worth more than connection, and your direction is worth more than comfort. When you detach, you regain command of your thoughts, your choices, and your future. You stop reacting. You start deciding. And when the world sees someone who does not break under pressure, who does not beg for attention, who does not collapse when abandoned, they fear you, respect you, or try to imitate you. Comment: I choose control to mark your beginning. Number 2. Cutting the strings that control you. Every human walks through life tied to invisible strings: expectations, memories, guilt, grudges, hopes, disappointments, the opinions of people who don't even live your life. These strings pull your emotions, distort your judgment, and control your decisions without you noticing. Machiavelli once said, "He who controls your emotions commands your actions, and whoever commands your actions commands your life." That's why detachment is not just a mindset, it's self-defense. When you cut these strings, you stop being a puppet. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. You begin to see clearly. You respond with logic instead of impulse. You move with intention, not desperation. Most people are prisoners of past pain. They react from old wounds. They drag memories into moments where they don't belong. But a strategic mind refuses to let the past dictate the present. You detach by accepting hard truths. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your trust. Not every emotion deserves your attention. You detach by refusing to let people live rent-free in your mind, by refusing to let anger rush your judgment or attachment blind your perception. True power begins the moment something that once triggered you now brings only clarity. The moment you walk away from someone who drains you without guilt. The moment you stand in silence, unmoved, while others try to provoke you. that is when you become untouchable. That is when you rise above the emotional chaos that destroys ordinary men. If you're ready to level up, comment, "My mind obeys me." Number 3, emotional neutrality, the weapon of the unshakable. Emotional neutrality is the silent weapon that turns ordinary men into strategic giants. The moment you stop reacting automatically is the moment you start choosing intelligently. Most people carry emotional triggers like open wounds, an insult, a delay, a rejection, and they collapse. They explode, they overthink, they beg, their emotions move first, and their mind arrives too late. But the man who masters emotional neutrality moves differently. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man governs his passions, the fool is governed by them." You observe before reacting, you breathe before speaking, you think before deciding. You are not cold, you are controlled, not distant, deliberate. Emotional neutrality means no one controls the pace of your inner world. You stay calm when others lose control, patient when others get irritated, strategic when others get emotional, and that is how you become impossible to shake. Understand this clearly. Your calmness intimidates people who depend on your reactions to feel important. The moment you stop reacting, their influence dies. When you stop explaining yourself, their confidence collapses. When you ignore emotional bait, their power to manipulate you disappears. Emotional neutrality is not weakness. It is the highest form of emotional intelligence. It allows you to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast anyone trying to provoke you. It gives you clarity in moments where others destroy themselves through impulse. Machiavelli once said, "The strength of a man is measured by what does not move him." Emotional neutrality is built through discipline. The discipline to let silence answer disrespect. The discipline to let time expose liars. The discipline to let distance reveal true intentions. The discipline to remain still while others try to pull you into their chaos. A neutral mind is dangerous because it cannot be provoked into acting against itself. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be guilt-tripped. It cannot be controlled. People will study your face and find nothing. They will test your patience and break before you do. They will try to manipulate you and realize you see straight through them. This is what makes you untouchable. This is what makes you unpredictable. This is what makes you powerful. If you're ready to build this level of inner steel, comment, "Calm is my power." Number 4, detaching from pain, turning wounds into weapons. Pain becomes a prison only when you believe it happened to you instead of for you. The moment you shift that perspective, the emotional chains of the past begin to break. Most people wear pain as identity, old betrayals, old heartbreaks, old humiliations, old losses. They replay them until those memories shape their confidence, their choices, their boundaries, and their self-worth. The past speaks louder than the present. Wounds decide who they become. But a Machiavellian mind refuses to live as a victim of yesterday. Machiavelli once said, "Injury must be done once and deliberately, so it no longer controls the future." You study pain like data. You mine it for information. You transform it into advantage. Detaching from pain does not mean denying it happened. It means refusing to let it steer your life. It means understanding this clearly. Pain builds strength only when you stop feeding it with attention. Pain sharpens you the moment you stop emotional storytelling and start extracting lessons. Who lied to you? Who underestimated you? Who left? Who hurt you? Good. Archive it as intelligence, not identity. Pain becomes fuel when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How does this make me stronger, colder, smarter, harder to break. The world destroys people who take pain personally. It cannot touch those who convert pain into discipline. Machiavelli once said, "Men rise or fall based on how they respond to adversity." Detaching from pain means refusing to let heartbreak turn you desperate, refusing to let betrayal make you paranoid, refusing to let failure make you timid. It means holding your emotional center steady even when your world shakes. It means remembering the past is not a prophecy. It is a closed chapter with no authority over your future unless you hand it the pen again. Every painful memory loses power the moment you stop revisiting it. Every wound stops bleeding when you stop picking at it. Every betrayal becomes irrelevant when you stop trying to understand it. You detach by saying, "This happened. It shaped me, but it no longer controls me." You detach by refusing to let someone who is gone still influence how you think, react, trust, or move. You detach by realizing every scar on your mind proves survival, not damage. Pain becomes a weapon when it no longer blinds you, but informs you. A man who can look at his past without flinching, bitterness, or emotional collapse cannot be manipulated through guilt, fear, or memory. That is the man who rises, the man who intimidates, the man who stays unshaken no matter what storms return. If you're ready to turn wounds into strength, comment, "Pain strengthens me." Number 5, detaching from people, reclaiming stolen power. Detaching from people is one of the coldest and most liberating disciplines to master. Because people are the greatest source of strength and suffering, clarity and confusion, growth and destruction. Most never learn this. They stay attached to the wrong people too long, hoping loyalty will change those who refuse to improve, hoping love will fix those who refuse to grow, hoping patience will make someone value what they constantly take for granted. They cling to relationships out of fear, not strategy. They tolerate disrespect out of loneliness, not wisdom. They replay old memories to avoid the truth that some people were meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions. A Machiavellian mind is not sentimental. It is surgical. You observe behavior, not excuses. You track patterns, not promises. It measures what someone brings into your life, not what they say they will bring. Eventually, Machiavelli once said, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Appearances deceive, actions reveal." Detaching from people does not mean isolation. It means refusing to give access to those who have proven they cannot be trusted with your energy, your peace, or your ambition. You stop trying to fix people who benefit from staying broken. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You detach by realizing loyalty without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You accept that someone who drains you emotionally is more dangerous than someone who challenges you physically. Walking away is not weakness. It is self-respect. The truth is simple. Everyone in your life is either an asset or a liability. When you evaluate through that lens, clarity sharpens. Some push you forward with support and belief. Others hold you back with envy and fear. Some expand your mind with discipline and challenge. Others shrink your world with drama and insecurity. Here's the cold reality. Many people don't love you. They love the benefits you provide: comfort, validation, emotional maintenance. When those benefits disappear, so do they. That is why detachment is power. When you no longer fear losing someone, no one can control you with presence or absence. When you don't rely emotionally, their behavior can't dictate your mood. When you expect nothing, disappointment loses its ability to wound. Detaching from people means choosing your circle intentionally, not desperately. You keep those aligned with growth, not those who demand you stay small. You invest in people who invest in themselves. You give loyalty to the few who earn it through consistency, integrity, and action. For everyone else, you remain respectful but distant, cordial but unavailable, kind but unmovable. A person who knows how to detach is dangerous. They cannot be controlled through abandonment, seduced by flattery, guilt-tripped into compliance, or emotionally blackmailed into staying where they no longer belong. They choose who stays and who leaves without trembling. If you're ready to reclaim your emotional power, comment, "I control my connections." Number 6, detaching from the past, destroying the stories that keep you weak. Detaching from the past demands ruthless honesty, because everything you still fear, regret, or cling to from yesterday survives for one reason only. You keep feeding it with attention, emotion, and repetition. The past is not alive, it's a memory, a psychological echo, a story you keep retelling until it becomes a cage you confuse for identity. Most people stay trapped because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. They replay heartbreaks as if suffering will change the ending. They analyze betrayals as if justice will suddenly appear. They carry guilt for mistakes that exist nowhere except in their mind. They cling to broken identities because they have no vision of who they could become without them. Machiavelli once said, "Men are bound not by chains, but by the stories they refuse to release." A Machiavellian mind does not worship the past. It studies it, extracts the lesson, and buries it without ceremony. Detaching from the past begins when you accept this truth. The version of you who lived those moments no longer exists. You have new awareness, new strength, new scars, new intelligence. So why stay loyal to a story written by someone you've already outgrown? The weak mind stays loyal to pain. The strong mind stays loyal to evolution. You learn to treat the past as data, not destiny. A lesson, not a definition. A reference, not a ruler. The moment you remove emotional meaning from old memories, they lose control over you. Because the truth is simple, your past is not hurting you anymore. Your attachment to the story is. Every time you revisit an old wound, you reopen it. Every time you replay an old failure, you freeze your present potential. Every time you mourn who you were, you abandon who you could become. Detaching from the past means seeing it clearly, without emotional fog. That relationship didn't break you. You outgrew someone afraid of growth. That betrayal didn't define you. It exposed who never deserved your loyalty. That failure wasn't the end. It was the pressure that sharpened you. That version of yourself you regret wasn't a mistake. It was the foundation your future strength is built on, and once the past no longer controls you, nothing else can. Here is the cold truth. You cannot step into power while holding hands with former weakness. You cannot build a new identity while clinging to the corpse of the old one. You cannot move forward while staring backward. Detachment begins when you refuse to let the past sit in the front seat of your life. When you refuse to let nostalgia blind you to who people truly were, not who you hoped they were. When you refuse to let guilt convince you that you owe something to the person you were before you knew better. When you refuse to let regret dictate your self-worth. And above all, when you refuse to let yesterday decide the energy you carry into today. Machiavelli once said, "Men are free when they are no longer ruled by what has already passed. No memory has power unless you authorize it. No mistake holds weight unless you reinforce it. No past identity survives unless you keep giving it life." The moment you stop feeding the past with emotion, it dies, and its death becomes your rebirth. Detaching from the past means stripping it of emotional authority. You can acknowledge what happened without letting it control your mood, your decisions, or your worldview. You can remember without reliving. You can reflect without drowning. This is the dividing line between the powerful and the powerless. The powerless use the past to justify stagnation. The powerful use it as fuel for transformation. A man no longer controlled by his past becomes dangerous because he becomes unpredictable. He breaks patterns instead of repeating them. He creates new standards instead of staying loyal to old wounds. He chooses who he becomes instead of defaulting to who he once was. That is why detaching from the past is the highest psychological evolution. You stop living as the product of what happened to you and start living as the architect of what happens next. Make no mistake, this requires willpower. Your mind will tempt you with familiar pain. It will romanticize old chapters. It will invite you back to habits that once felt comfortable. But comfort is the bait that keeps people chained to lives they should have left behind. When you detach from the past, you stop mourning chapters that were never meant to follow you. You stop apologizing for outgrowing environments that no longer feed you. You stop feeling guilty for becoming someone your old circle cannot understand. The past becomes a closed book, not a recurring nightmare. The man who detaches from his past becomes unbreakable. Nothing behind him can pull him backward. He becomes unstoppable because his identity evolves faster than his memories can limit him. And he becomes unshakable the moment he realizes the only prison was the story he kept telling himself. If you are ready to destroy the final chains, whisper it internally and comment publicly, "The past has no power over me." Number 7, building the unbreakable mind, the rise of the man who feels but obeys only his will. An unbreakable mind is not emotionless, but it is a mind where emotion exists but never commands, where feeling occurs but never overrules reason, where fear whispers but never wins, where doubt appears but never dictates direction, and where the past, people, and pain may knock on the door but are never allowed inside. Most people break not because life is too hard, but because their mind is too open, invaded by memories that should have been buried, opinions that should have been ignored, fears that should have been confronted, attachments that should have been cut long ago. They live like open cities, no walls, no gates, no guards. Any thought, any person, any insult, any insecurity walks in and takes control. But an unbreakable mind is a fortress, built intentionally, reinforced daily, guarded ruthlessly. And that fortress begins with self-command. Machiavelli once said, "A man who rules himself is never conquered by others." The first pillar is discipline. Discipline trains you to act regardless of how you feel. It teaches you to move when others hesitate, continue when others quit, focus when others get distracted, and rise when others collapse. When your actions obey principles instead of emotions, your mind becomes untouchable. The second pillar is clarity, the ability to see reality without emotional distortion or sentimental fog. Clarity exposes manipulation instantly, reveals threats early, and identifies weakness within you before others exploit it. It makes you immune to flattery, indifferent to insults, and resistant to chaos. The third pillar is detachment. Without it, discipline weakens and clarity corrupts. Detachment frees you from invisible chains, approval, validation, nostalgia, guilt, loneliness, desire. It says, I feel this, but I will not follow it. I acknowledge the pain, but I will not bow. I remember what happened, but I do not live there. And this is where true strength begins. The fourth pillar is adaptability. Adaptability is the ability to shift when life shifts, to evolve when circumstances change, to adjust strategy when the situation demands it, and to remove yourself from environments where your strengths are wasted or your value is drained. Adaptability is the weapon of those who survive storms, and the advantage of those who defeat opponents without ever meeting them head-on. Machiavelli once said, "A wise man adapts himself to the times." The fifth pillar is emotional minimalism, the discipline of caring selectively, investing intentionally, and reacting sparingly. An unbreakable mind does not waste energy on pointless arguments, stagnant people, fragile opportunities, or ego-driven situations. It cares only where care produces results. It invests where effort multiplies. It reacts only when reaction changes outcomes. The sixth pillar is silence. Strategic silence, not passive silence. You do not broadcast plans, expose emotions, explain boundaries, or justify decisions. Silence protects intention, confuses enemies, and amplifies presence. While others talk, you prepare. The seventh pillar is mental independence, the ability to think, decide, and validate yourself without external approval. Most fear standing alone because they lack self-belief, but an unbreakable mind understands solitude is not emptiness, it is power. In solitude, vision sharpens, identity solidifies, and strength becomes undeniable. The eighth pillar is emotional sovereignty, full ownership of your inner world. No one controls your mood. No one dictates your value. No one pulls you into emotional chaos. You live by one law: my emotions belong to me. The ninth pillar is ruthless relationship standards. You do not bond with those who drain, distract, or derail you. You do not chase those who leave or cling to those who contribute nothing. You eliminate energy vampires, emotional parasites, and insecure manipulators. You surround yourself only with those who sharpen, support, or strengthen you. And the 10th pillar, identity mastery. The ability to consciously choose who you become next instead of remaining who you were by default. You shed outdated beliefs, eliminate destructive habits, upgrade standards, and reinvent yourself without apology. An unbreakable mind is not inherited. It is constructed, brick by brick, decision by decision, boundary by boundary, forged through silence, suffering, solitude, strategy, and self-respect. Once built, no betrayal can shatter it. No loss can collapse it. No insult can penetrate it. No storm can move it. If you are ready to begin forging this inner fortress, comment, "My mind is mine." Number 8. The power of controlled emotion, commanding your inner world like a strategist, not a slave. Controlled emotion is not the absence of feeling. It is mastery over feeling. The ability to direct emotion instead of being driven by it. The precision to command your inner forces the way a general commands an army. Most people misunderstand emotional control. They believe it means becoming numb or indifferent. That is not strength. That is weakness, pretending to be toughness. True control means you feel everything, yet nothing controls your behavior. You experience emotion fully, but you obey it only when it serves your strategy. You do not suppress emotion, you subordinate it. You do not flee from feeling, you rule over it. Machiavelli once said, "He who commands himself is stronger than he who conquers cities." This is why controlled emotion becomes one of the most dangerous weapons of a powerful mind. Because nearly every human downfall, betrayal, humiliation, impulsive decisions, broken relationships, missed opportunities can be traced back to an emotion that seized control for a single moment. Anger left unchecked, fear left unchallenged, love left unquestioned, sadness left unexplored, ego left unbroken, desire left unexamined. Every collapse begins the same way, surrendering the crown to a moment that never deserved it. But the man who commands his emotions becomes untouchable. He reacts in ways others do not expect. He does not break the way his past once programmed him. He does not collapse under pressure like the average mind. To control emotion is to control behavior, and to control behavior is to control destiny. The first step is awareness, catching the emotion the moment it rises, identifying its trigger, its origin, its intention before it hijacks your mind. Awareness creates distance. Distance creates leverage. Without awareness, emotion rides you. With awareness, you ride emotion. The second step is interpretation. Understanding that emotion is not truth. Emotion is a signal, not a command. Fear alerts you, but it does not define reality. Anger marks a boundary, but it does not choose the response. Sadness shows something mattered, but it does not define who you are. Desire reveals what you want, not whether it is wise. Emotion speaks. You decide whether it leads or follows. Machiavelli once said, "Men are driven by passions, but ruled by reason only when they choose it." The third step is containment. Holding emotion without letting it spill onto others or sabotage your decisions. You learn the difference between what you feel internally and what you express externally. You can feel anger without speaking it, fear without acting on it, love without losing judgment, pain without collapsing. Containment creates the distance weak minds lack. The fourth step is direction. You take emotion and convert it into fuel instead of letting it burn you. Anger becomes discipline, fear becomes preparation, pain becomes strength, loss becomes clarity, desire becomes ambition, emotion turns into raw energy you channel, not a wildfire that consumes you. This is why controlled emotion creates greatness. It concentrates power instead of scattering it. The fifth step is detachment, the ability to hold emotion without becoming it, to observe your inner storm while standing calm at the center of your mind. Detachment allows you to feel deeply yet act rationally, to experience intensity without losing composure, to walk through fire without letting the flames decide your direction. Most people destroy themselves by turning emotion into identity. They say, "I am angry," instead of "I feel anger." "I am afraid," instead of "I feel fear." "I am broken," instead of "I feel pain." Once emotion becomes identity, control disappears. But the man who separates self from feeling becomes sovereign. He is no longer ruled by internal weather. He becomes the observer, the commander, the architect of his inner world. And that is when emotion stops owning you and starts serving you. The sixth step is expression with intention. The controlled release of emotion only when it serves a purpose. You express emotion when it advances your goals, strengthens bonds, protects boundaries, or clarifies truth, not when it merely seeks relief. Weak minds vent impulsively. Strong minds express strategically. Machiavelli once said, "Power belongs to those who act with purpose, not impulse." The seventh step is self-respect. Emotional control is impossible without it. Self-respect sets non-negotiable rules with yourself. You do not beg, you do not panic, you do not chase, you do not collapse, you do not react blindly or humiliate yourself for temporary emotion. When you respect yourself, you refuse behaviors that weaken you, even when emotion tempts you. The eighth and final step is integration. This is when emotional control becomes instinct. You stay calm automatically. You think before reacting without effort. You remain composed even when blindsided. You move with the quiet, dangerous confidence of someone who cannot be shaken from within. People may call you cold or detached. In reality, you are simply not controlled by what controls them. You feel deeply, they just don't see it. You think deeply, they just don't hear it. You choose your responses, and they can't predict them. Controlled emotion is the crown of the unbreakable mind. It separates leaders from followers, the respected from the exploited, the dominant from the manipulated. Machiavelli once said, "True power is found in self-command when others lose themselves." If you are ready to rise into this level of mastery, comment, "I command my emotions." Number 9, becoming untroublable, the state where nothing can move your center. To become untroublable is to reach inner dominance, a state where life no longer shakes you, people no longer confuse you, emotions no longer drown you, and circumstances no longer decide the quality of your mind. It is the moment your internal stability becomes so solid, so deliberate, that external forces lose their ability to penetrate your psychological walls. Most people live in constant emotional turbulence because their minds are reactive, not intentional. They respond instantly to stress, panic in uncertainty, break under pressure, and let minor insults or inconveniences knock them off balance. Their emotional center is fragile and easily influenced. But the untroublable man moves differently. He is anchored, steady, deliberate, unshaken, not because life is easy, but because his inner system cannot be destabilized. Machiavelli once said, "The man who governs himself is beyond the reach of fortune." Becoming untroublable begins with one truth. Control is internal, not external. You cannot control what others say, how they behave, how they misjudge you, or how life unfolds. But you can control how you interpret, respond, and adapt. You control your thoughts, reactions, habits, boundaries, strategy, and emotional investment. You detach from the illusion of external control and redirect all power inward. The untroublable man does not need perfect circumstances. He needs a disciplined mind. He does not need fair treatment. He needs clear boundaries. He does not need predictability. He needs unwavering focus. This is where most fail. They try to fix the world instead of fortifying themselves. They try to change people instead of mastering responses. They avoid discomfort instead of training endurance. They escape uncertainty instead of strengthening tolerance for it. To become untroublable, you build emotional endurance, the ability to remain calm in storms that terrify others, to think clearly under pressure, to stay composed when insulted, and once you master that, very little in this world can ever touch you again. The untroublable man keeps moving even when emotion screams at him to freeze. He cultivates internal stillness, a quiet space inside his mind that nothing external can reach. Stillness is not passivity. It is control in chaos. It means you don't let people drag you into noise. You don't let their insecurity trigger yours. You don't let their drama infect your peace. You let the world burn around you without letting the fire spread inside. Machiavelli once said, "He who depends on others for his peace will never be at peace." As you develop this control, people will test you more. Your calm threatens their instability. Your silence threatens their insecurity. Your discipline threatens their laziness. Your detachment threatens their manipulation. But you remain unbothered because you understand a core truth. Someone else's internal chaos is not your responsibility. Becoming untroublable also requires unshakable self-trust, not ego, evidence. Built from discipline, experience, and surviving what once broke you. You trust your judgment. You trust your intuition. You trust your resilience. You trust your ability to handle whatever comes. The untroublable man does not fear the unknown because he trusts himself inside it. He does not fear loss because he trusts his ability to rebuild. He does not fear rejection because he knows his value. And finally, becoming untroublable means detachment from outcomes. You do the work, execute the plan, give your best. Then you detach from the result. No obsession, no panic, no overthinking. This is emotional freedom, when nothing external can disturb your inner equilibrium. Comment: nothing can shake me. Number 10. The final ascent. Living as the one who cannot be broken. To live unbroken is to stop participating in emotional games, to rise above reactivity, ego battles, impulsive emotion, validation seeking, the past, and the instability of others. A man who cannot be broken has a mind tested, sharpened, refined, and rebuilt, standing like steel in a world full of shaking foundations. You become someone who does not collapse when life hits hardest, someone who does not cling when people leave, someone who does not fold when emotions rise, someone who does not lose himself when uncertainty arrives. Instead, you stand calm, centered, and immovable because you built yourself from the inside out. Living unbroken requires daily vigilance. You protect your peace with boundaries that do not bend. You guide your actions with logic, not impulse. You maintain perspective when emotions try to distort reality. You choose silence where others choose chaos. You choose distance where others choose drama. You choose self-control where others choose self-destruction. Machiavelli once said, "The man who governs himself is stronger than the man who conquers cities." This daily discipline becomes your armor. Living unbroken does not mean you never feel pain. It means pain does not own you. It does not define you. It does not decide your story. Living unbroken does not mean you never face loss. It means loss does not turn you into someone you are not. Living unbroken does not mean you never feel fear. It means fear does not control your direction. The unbreakable mind still feels, but with mastery. It still cares, but selectively. It still trusts, but wisely. It still loves, without losing itself. And above all, it keeps moving forward, regardless of who stays, who leaves, who doubts, who betrays. The man who lives unbroken becomes a force, silent, steady, self-directed, impossible to manipulate. People study him but cannot understand him. They see his composure, not the battles that earned it. They see his detachment, not the pain he overcame. They see his confidence, not the scars that forged it. This is the final transformation. You detached from people, pain, and the past. You built neutrality, control, self-command, and discipline. You claimed a mind that belongs only to you. If this video opened your eyes, hit like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe. Because we're just getting started. The world belongs to those who understand how it really works. And drop this final affirmation in the comments. I rise above all. Honestly, if everything was taken from you today, what would you do? Do you really control your mind? Or has it always been your mind controlling you?